expecting some kind of vindication moment for their content. Instead, they got their influencer crying genuine tears of frustration and humiliation, ranting about corrupt judges and family betrayal. One supporter tried to comfort her while another filmed everything, apparently not understanding that posting this meltdown would only make Vanessa look worse. Jennifer and I walked past without acknowledging them, letting Vanessa's public breakdown speak for itself. The restraining order hearing followed immediately, a continuation of the same proceeding. Jennifer presented our evidence: the deleted but screenshotted social media posts, the unwanted contact, the repeated boundary violations, and now this second frivolous lawsuit. Your Honor, Ms. Maya Sterling has made clear repeatedly that she wants no contact with her family. They have responded with legal harassment, public social media attacks, and continued unwanted contact. She is requesting a restraining order requiring them to maintain distance and cease all communication. Judge Martinez reviewed the evidence with an expression that suggested she was tired of the Sterling family drama. Ms. Sterling, do you contest any of these allegations? Vanessa, still tearful and angry, made her situation worse. My parents aren't even here. This is just about Maya being vindictive because I filed a petition for what's rightfully mine. Judge Martinez closed the folder. The property is not rightfully yours. This court has now told you that twice. The restraining order is granted. You, your parents Robert and Patricia Sterling, and any associates acting on your behalf are prohibited from contacting Maya Sterling directly or indirectly, from coming within 500 feet of her residence or workplace, and from posting about her on social media. Violations will result in contempt charges and possible jail time. Do you understand? Vanessa understood nothing except her own victimhood, but she nodded anyway. The restraining order was entered into record, copies served immediately. My parents, who had wisely stayed away from this hearing, would receive their copies by the end of the day. 3 years of building my dream property, 6 months of legal harassment, and now I finally had legal protection from the family that viewed my success as their entitlement. The sanctions and court costs hit Vanessa hard. She didn't have $1,000, having never maintained savings or steady income. She tried to get our parents to pay it, but even they had apparently reached their limit of funding her delusions. She started a GoFundMe asking her followers to help her fight family injustice, which was reported and removed within 24 hours for violating the platform's terms of service against funding legal fees for frivolous claims. Jennifer filed for wage garnishment when Vanessa missed the 30-day payment deadline, but Vanessa had no wages to garnish. We then filed a claim against any potential assets, which amounted to her car, a used Audi our parents had bought her 6 years ago, now worth maybe $8,000. The sheriff's sale was scheduled for March, and while I didn't need the money, I wasn't letting Vanessa escape consequences by claiming poverty. My professional life continued its upward trajectory, insulated from family drama by office walls and colleague support. The Durham mixed-use development project progressed ahead of schedule, my design earning praise from both the developer and City Planning Commission. I was invited to speak on a panel about sustainable urban architecture at a conference in Boston, my first national speaking engagement. Success, real success earned through skill and work, felt better than any family approval ever could have. I spent February weekends at the beach house, watching winter storms roll across the Atlantic from the safety of my heated living room. The isolation was therapeutic. No unexpected visitors now that the restraining order made contact illegal. No obligation to share my space or success. No family drama penetrating my sanctuary. I started sketching ideas for a small addition, a dedicated office space with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the ocean, another investment in property that was mine alone. My 34th birthday approached in late February, and I planned another celebration at the beach house, bigger than last year's gathering. 40 people confirmed attendance: colleagues, friends, people from my gym, my book club, my professional organizations. Not one family member would be present. And that fact felt like its own gift. I hired a catering company, rented a sound system, planned a weekend of celebration for a life built entirely on my own terms. The week before my birthday, Jennifer called with news that made the celebration even sweeter. The sheriff's sale of Vanessa's car is scheduled for your birthday weekend. I can request a postponement if you want to avoid the timing looking vindictive. I thought about it for maybe 3 seconds. No postponement, let it proceed as scheduled. If she had paid the sanctions on time, this wouldn't be happening. Natural consequences aren't vindictive, they're just consequences. The sale happened Saturday morning while I was at the beach house preparing for my party that evening. Jennifer attended as my representative, watching as Vanessa's Audi sold for $7,500, enough to cover the sanctions, court costs, and Jennifer's fees for the collection process. Vanessa showed up crying, begging the deputy to stop the sale, claiming she needed the car for work, which was laughable given she had no job. The deputy informed her that transportation needs didn't override court-ordered debt collection, and the sale proceeded. Vanessa posted one final Instagram rant that evening, filmed from what appeared to be a bus stop, tearfully explaining how her cruel sister had stolen her car on her birthday weekend over a tiny court fee. The post violated the restraining order's prohibition on posting about me on social media, which several of my friends immediately reported. Jennifer filed a motion for contempt, and Vanessa spent the next week frantically deleting the post and all related comments, but the screenshots existed forever, documenting her violation. My birthday party was perfect. Friends filled the beach house, music played on the deck, catered food exceeded expectations, and I stood watching the sunset over the Atlantic feeling completely, genuinely happy. Jennifer gave another toast, this one about the importance of protecting your peace and letting go of people who refuse to respect your boundaries. Several guests who knew my story raised their glasses higher, understanding the specific victory being celebrated. The contempt hearing for Vanessa's restraining order violation was scheduled for mid-March, another court appearance, another opportunity for my sister to demonstrate her inability to accept consequences. Jennifer advised that judges took restraining order violations seriously, especially when documented through social media posts that were reported by multiple people. She could face jail time, Jennifer explained. Probably just a few days, enough to scare her, but it's possible. I should have felt guilty about the possibility of my sister going to jail. I didn't. Vanessa had been given every advantage, every opportunity, every dollar she needed to build a life. She chose instead to focus on what I had, to demand access to my success, to weaponize our parents' favoritism into legal harassment. She had violated a court order because she couldn't resist playing victim on social media. Whatever happened now was entirely her own doing. The contempt hearing brought a smaller crowd, just me, Jennifer, Vanessa, and a court-appointed attorney trying to mitigate the damage his client had done to herself. Judge Martinez reviewed the Instagram post, the screenshots, the timestamps proving it was posted after the restraining order was in effect. Ms. Sterling, you were explicitly told not to post about your sister on social media. You did so anyway. Explain your reasoning. Vanessa's attorney tried to argue she didn't understand the order's scope, that she thought it only applied to direct contact, that she was emotional and not thinking clearly. Judge Martinez cut through the excuses. The order was written in clear language. Ms. Sterling is an adult capable of reading and understanding court documents. This is a willful violation. She sentenced Vanessa to 5 days in county jail, suspended pending 6 months of good behavior, meaning if Vanessa violated the order again, she would serve the time. She also added another $500 fine and extended the restraining order's duration by another year. Vanessa left the courtroom looking stunned, finally understanding that judges don't care about your feelings or social media following. They care about following court orders. Her attorney looked relieved his client hadn't been immediately jailed, clearly aware that arguing further might change Judge Martinez's mind. I left feeling the satisfaction of boundaries enforced and consequences delivered, not by my actions, but by the legal system simply doing its job. March brought spring weather and renewed energy for my work projects. The Durham development broke ground with a ceremony I attended, photos of me in a hard hat holding a shovel appearing in the local business journal. My parents saw the article, I knew, because a mutual acquaintance mentioned that my mother had commented bitterly about my success at a charity event, but they couldn't contact me to express their opinions. The restraining order ensured their bitterness remained their own problem. The Beach House office addition began construction in April. A local contractor I had vetted thoroughly handling the work. I spent weekends watching the project take shape, the glass walls and custom desk space exactly as I had designed. The addition would increase the property value by at least $100,000, another investment in my sanctuary, another improvement my family had no claim to. The contempt hearing aftermath brought unexpected developments. Vanessa's court-appointed attorney apparently had a come-to-Jesus conversation with his client about the reality of her legal situation, because in late April I received a formal letter through Jennifer's office. Vanessa was requesting permission to apologize in writing, through attorneys only, in hopes of avoiding future violations and potential jail time. Jennifer's advice was clear. You have zero obligation to accept or respond to any apology. But if you do allow it, make sure it goes through me, and make sure it's documented as not constituting contact that violates the restraining order. I agreed to receive the letter. Curiosity overcoming my general policy of ignoring my family's attempts at communication. What arrived was 3 handwritten pages of what Vanessa's attorney probably hoped would demonstrate genuine remorse, but mostly revealed her continued inability to accept responsibility. She was sorry that things escalated, sorry that miscommunications led to legal issues, sorry that family conflict became so public. Nowhere did she apologize for filing frivolous lawsuits, violating court orders, or spending 28 years benefiting from parental favoritism while treating me as less valuable. Jennifer filed the letter as evidence of contact attempted through proper legal channels, and I never responded. My parents made their own attempt at reconciliation through Aunt Patricia, who called me in May asking if I would consider meeting with a family therapist they had hired. "Your mother is really struggling with the estrangement," Patricia explained gently. "She feels like she's lost a daughter." I felt no sympathy. "She sued me, Aunt Patricia. She supported Vanessa's lawsuit even after losing their own. She spent my entire life treating me as less important than my sister. She didn't lose a daughter. She revealed she never really had one, just a scapegoat who finally escaped." Patricia sighed, torn between her sister and her niece. "I know their behavior has been terrible, Maya. I've told Eleanor that repeatedly. But is there no path back? Does it have to be permanent?" I thought about the question seriously before answering. If someone steals from you, you don't give them another key to your house. If someone sues you, you don't invite them to family dinners. If someone shows you for decades that they don't value you equally, you don't keep hoping they'll change. It's not about punishment, Patricia. It's about protection. They can't hurt me if I don't give them access to my life. The conversation ended with Patricia's reluctant acceptance that I wasn't interested in reconciliation, therapy, or any relationship with my parents or sister. She promised to stop carrying messages between us, understanding finally that her role as family bridge was enabling continued violation of boundaries I had established clearly. We made plans for her to visit the beach house in July, just the two of us, the one family relationship worth maintaining. Summer arrived with increased work demands as the Durham project entered its critical construction phase. I spent 3 days a week on site, managing contractor issues and design modifications, the kind of hands-on involvement that separated good architects from great ones. The developer praised my attention to detail and problem-solving ability, hinting at future projects if this one continued successfully. Success building on success, achievement earned through competence, the opposite of Vanessa's expectation that rewards should arrive without effort. June brought an unexpected message from Dr. Rebecca Morrison, the journalist whose article on family estrangement had quoted my case extensively. Her book was being published in September, and she wanted my permission to use more detailed information about my situation, including the subsequent lawsuits and restraining order. "Your case has become the most requested story from readers of the original article," she explained. "People want to know what happened after you set boundaries, whether your family accepted them or continued pushing. The legal consequences you documented provide a roadmap for others dealing with similar harassment." I agreed, seeing value in showing that setting boundaries sometimes required legal enforcement, that families didn't automatically respect your autonomy just because you demanded it, that consequences were sometimes necessary to protect yourself from people who claim to love you while actively harming you. Dr. Morrison sent me relevant book excerpts for fact-checking, and reading my own story through her psychological analysis was enlightening. She identified patterns I had lived but never named: parentification, scapegoating, triangulation, financial abuse disguised as selective support. The book's publication was scheduled for September, coinciding with National Family Estrangement Awareness Week, a thing I hadn't known existed but made sense given how many people Dr. Morrison said experienced similar situations. She arranged for me to participate in a podcast interview about the book, my voice disguised but my story told fully, another opportunity to help others recognize toxic family dynamics and understand that escape was possible. July arrived with Aunt Patricia's promised visit to the beach house. 4 days of genuine family connection unmarred by the Sterling family dysfunction. We talked honestly about my childhood, and Patricia shared observations I had never heard. How my mother always seemed threatened by my independence, how my father viewed parenting as a business investment he expected returns from, how Vanessa was enabled into helplessness by parents who confused support with actually preparing her for adult life. "Your mother called me after the restraining order," Patricia confided over wine on the deck. "She wanted me to convince you that they only sued because they love you and want what's best for the family. I told her that suing your child isn't love. It's control disguised as concern." We haven't spoken since. I felt guilty that my estrangement had damaged Patricia's relationship with her sister. but she waved off my apology. Eleanor has been exhausting for 60 years, Maya. You just had the courage to stop pretending dysfunction was normal. I'm proud of you. The Durham project reached substantial completion in August, the exterior finished and interior work progressing rapidly toward the October grand opening. The developer hosted a hard hat tour for investors and local officials, and I presented the design vision and sustainable features to a group that included 2 city council members and the mayor. Photos from the event appeared in the business section, my name and firm prominently featured. I was 34 years old, lead architect on a $15 million project, and absolutely no one in my family could claim credit for my achievement. Dr. Morrison's book released in early September to strong reviews and immediate bestseller status, tapping into a cultural conversation about toxic families and the right to distance yourself from people who harm you. The chapter featuring my case, identified only as Maya S., but detailed enough that anyone who knew the story would recognize it, generated particular interest. Online forums discussing the book filled with comments from people who saw their own families in my story, who felt validated in their decisions to limit or eliminate contact with parents or siblings who refused to respect boundaries. The podcast interview aired mid-September, my voice altered electronically, but my story told in my own words. People assume that cutting off family requires some dramatic abuse, but death by 1,000 cuts is still death. I explained to the host. My parents didn't beat me or abandon me. They just consistently, relentlessly treated me as less valuable than my sister, then tried to steal the success I achieved despite their neglect. That's enough. You don't owe relationship to people who demonstrate through actions that they don't genuinely care about your well-being. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of downloads in the first week, emails to the podcast from listeners sharing their own stories, thanking me for articulating feelings they had struggled to express. Several listeners mentioned they were consulting attorneys about restraining orders against family members. Inspired by my documentation that legal protection was possible, I had become accidentally, reluctantly, a voice for adult children protecting themselves from toxic families. Vanessa apparently heard the podcast. Someone must have sent her the link, because in late September, a letter arrived at Jennifer's office from a different attorney. Not court-appointed this time, but apparently paid for somehow. The letter threatened to sue for defamation over the podcast interview, claiming I had damaged Vanessa's reputation by discussing our family situation publicly. Jennifer read it, laughed, and drafted a response explaining that truth is an absolute defense to defamation, that I had never used Vanessa's full name in the interview, and that threatening litigation over protected speech could itself be considered harassment under our existing restraining order. The defamation threat evaporated immediately. Vanessa's new attorney apparently realized his client had no case and significant risk of making her legal situation worse, but the attempt revealed that Vanessa hadn't learned anything from her previous legal defeats, still believed she could use courts to punish me for the crime of succeeding and setting boundaries. Jennifer added the threat to our documentation file, building an increasingly comprehensive record of harassment that would support extending or strengthening the restraining order if necessary. October brought the grand opening of the Durham project, an event covered by local media and attended by several hundred people. I gave a short speech about sustainable urban development and the importance of creating spaces that served communities rather than just developers' bottom lines. The building was beautiful, exactly as I had envisioned, proof that my architectural